1707. Somewhere in the Deccan, an old emperor prepares for another campaign. For more than 25 years, he has scarcely left his military camp. His beard has turned white, his body has grown weary, yet the war continues. Around him stretches the Mughal Empire, at the height of its power. An empire he spent nearly half a century building. One victory after another, one burden after another, and more to lose. His name was Aurangzeb Alamgir. History remembers him as the emperor who brought the Mughal Empire to its greatest extent. It also remembers him as the ruler whose reign marked the beginning of its long decline. How can the same man be remembered for both? Perhaps because history remembers what Aurangzeb built, but not what it cost him to carry it. To understand Aurangzeb, we must first understand the world into which he was born, because he did not inherit an ordinary kingdom. He inherited one of the richest and most powerful empires on earth. In 1618, the Mughal Empire stood at the height of its splendor. Its cities dazzled travelers. Its markets overflowed with goods from every corner of Asia. Persian poets filled its courts. Architects raised monuments that would outlive dynasties. Merchants crossed continents to reach its ports. And at its head sat the descendants of Timur the Lame and Babur. Into this world was born a prince named Muhi al-Din Muhammad. History would remember him differently, as Aurangzeb. Many believe the future belonged to his elder brother, Dara Shikoh, charismatic, cultured, widely regarded as the heir apparent. Aurangzeb seemed different, less interested in admiration, more interested in discipline. While other princes embraced the splendor of the imperial court, Aurangzeb embraced austerity. He studied, he prayed, he trained, he governed provinces, he learned command. Long before he wore the imperial crown, he learned that duty often demands sacrifice. Where others sought admiration, Aurangzeb sought discipline. The Mughal Empire possessed extraordinary wealth. Magnificent cities, powerful armies, a dynasty that seemed almost unshakable. But like every monarchy, its greatest weakness was succession. The Mughal emperors did not recognize primogeniture. There was no law declaring that the eldest son would inherit the throne. Instead, every generation faced the same terrible question: who was worthy to rule? And the answer was often decided on the battlefield. Then, in 1657, the Emperor Shah Jahan became gravely ill. Across the empire, rumors spread. Had the emperor died? If he had, 4 princes stood ready: Dara Shikoh, Shah Shuja, Murad Baksh, and Aurangzeb. Brothers bound by blood, but soon divided by a throne. Every one of them had grown up beneath the same palace roofs. Every one of them was a son of Shah Jahan, and every one of them believed he had a claim. Only one, however, could become emperor, and among them, Dara Shikoh seemed the obvious successor. He possessed his father's confidence. He moved comfortably through the imperial court. He immersed himself in philosophy, mysticism, and the search for religious truth. Many believed the empire already had the next emperor. Aurangzeb believed otherwise. The throne was not merely an inheritance, it was a responsibility. One he believed demanded discipline, conviction, strength. Whether history agrees with that judgment is another question, but Aurangzeb believed it wholeheartedly. And men who believe they are fulfilling a duty can become extraordinarily dangerous. In September 1657, the race for the peacock throne had begun. It would leave brothers dead, a father imprisoned, an empire forever changed. And a prince who had spent his entire life preparing for duty was about to discover what duty would demand of him. The struggle for the Mughal throne had begun, and Aurangzeb understood something his brothers would soon learn. A claim to the throne meant nothing unless an army could defend it. From the Deccan, Aurangzeb moved north, but he did not march alone. His younger brother Murad Baksh had also declared himself emperor, and rather than fight him, Aurangzeb pragmatically offered an alliance, for the moment. Two brothers would march together against the others. Their first great obstacle came at Dharmat. An imperial army stood in their path, sent to halt their advance. Aurangzeb and Murad defeated it. The road north was open, and waiting near Agra was Dara Shikoh. On the 29th of May, 1658, the brothers met at Samugad. Two visions of the Mughal future now faced one another across a battlefield. Dara possessed a vast army, war elephants, cavalry, artillery, and the authority of the imperial court. Aurangzeb possessed something different: experience, patience, and a lifetime spent learning command. The battle raged beneath the heat of the Indian summer. Then Dara's army began to break. By the end of the day, the heir apparent was fleeing, and Aurangzeb was marching toward Agra. But there was one problem: Shah Jahan was still alive. The emperor had recovered from the illness that had begun the crisis in the first place. The father still lived. The sons had simply gone too far to turn back. Aurangzeb seized control of Agra, and Shah Jahan was confined within the fortress from which we had once ruled one of the richest empires on earth. Father had become prisoner to son. And still Aurangzeb was not secure, because Murad remained, the brother who had fought beside him, the brother whose soldiers helped carry him toward the throne, was now another claimant to it. Their alliance had served its purpose. Murad was arrested. Years later, he would be executed. Another brother removed. But Dara was still alive, defeated, not destroyed. He fled across the empire searching for soldiers, allies, somewhere from which to begin again. Aurangzeb pursued him. The prince who had once seemed destined to inherit the Mughal world became a fugitive within it. Eventually, Dara was betrayed, captured, and brought back to Delhi. There, Aurangzeb faced perhaps the darkest decision of his ascent. Dara was not merely a defeated rival. He was his brother. But while Dara lived, so did another claim to the throne. In 1659, Dara Shikoh was executed. Only one brother remained, Shah Shuja, from Bengal. He too marched for the throne, and Aurangzeb met him at Kajwa and defeated him. Shuja fled east, never to threaten Aurangzeb's throne again. The war was over. Aurangzeb had won. His father was imprisoned, Murad was gone, Shuja was driven away, and Dara was dead. And the prince who had spent his entire life preparing himself to rule finally ruled. He took a new title, Alamgir, Caesar of the world. But there is a peculiar cruelty to ambition. For years, Aurangzeb had fought for the right to carry the empire. Now, there was nobody left to carry it but him. The throne had been won, but the burden had only just begun. Aurangzeb had won the throne. Now, he intended to rule according to the convictions that had shaped him. He lived austerely, he prayed, he worked relentlessly, and increasingly, he sought to bring his empire closer to his understanding of Islamic law. Court practices were restricted. Islamic scholars gained greater influence, and in 1679, Aurangzeb restored the jizya tax upon non-Muslims. His religious policies remain among the most controversial aspects of his reign. Hindus continued to occupy powerful positions within his government. Some temples received imperial protection, others were destroyed by his command. To Aurangzeb, faith and kingship could not easily be separated, but ruling by conviction did not mean ruling without consequence. Resistance simmered across the empire, and nowhere was the challenge greater than in the Deccan. There, a new power had emerged, the Marathas. At their head sat Shivaji. His armies moved quickly through terrain the Mughals struggled to control. Forts were captured, imperial armies frustrated, and even after Chhatrapati Shivaji's death in 1680, the Maratha challenge survived him. Then came something painfully familiar. Aurangzeb's own son, Prince Akbar, rebelled. The man who had once risen against his father now faced rebellion from his own son. Akbar fled south, and Aurangzeb followed. In 1681, at more than 60 years old, the emperor left northern India for the Deccan. He would never return. For the next 25 years, Aurangzeb would pursue the greatest conquests of his reign. The Mughal Empire would reach its largest territorial extent. But every conquest required another army, another fortress, another campaign, another year. Aurangzeb Alamgir, the Caesar of the world, was about to discover something conquest rarely teaches its victors. Taking an empire and carrying one were very different things. Aurangzeb had come south to finish a war. Instead, the Deccan would consume the rest of his life. The emperor brought with him one of the greatest armies the Mughal Empire had ever assembled, and at first, victory followed. In 1686, Bijapur fell. A year later, Golconda followed. Kingdoms that had resisted Mughal expansion for generations were gone. The empire stretched farther than ever before, from the mountains of Afghanistan deep into southern India. Aurangzeb Alamgir had become what his name proclaimed, the Caesar of the world. But conquering the Deccan did not mean controlling it. The Marathas remained. After Shivaji came his son Sambhaji. In 1689, he was captured and executed. Aurangzeb had eliminated yet another enemy, but not the resistance. Another generation of Maratha leaders emerged. Fortresses were lost, retaken, and lost again. Mughal armies pursued an enemy that refused to disappear. Years became decades, and the emperor grew old. The victories continued, but so did the cost. Armies had to be fed. Soldiers had to be paid. Fortresses had to be garrisoned. And while Aurangzeb fought in the south, the vast empire behind him became harder to govern. Still he continued, campaign after campaign, siege after siege, year after year. The emperor who had once believed duty demanded discipline now seemed incapable of abandoning the burden he chose to carry. And gradually the conqueror disappeared into his own conquest. By 1707, Aurangzeb was 88 years old. For more than 25 years, he had scarcely left the Deccan. His brothers were dead, his father was dead, Shivaji was dead, Sambhaji was dead, generations of enemies had come and gone, and still the war continued. The Mughal Empire now stood at the greatest territorial extent in its history, yet the old emperor who ruled it was exhausted. Aurangzeb had spent a lifetime expanding the inheritance of his ancestors. He had defeated brothers, imprisoned a father, conquered kingdoms, outlived enemies, and carried the Mughal Empire farther than any emperor before him. But the world he had seized had become too heavy for one old man to hold. In March 1707, Aurangzeb Alamgir died in the Deccan, far from the imperial capitals of the north. He was buried in a simple grave. No enormous mausoleum, no monument like the one his father had built for his mother. Just the earth. Above the emperor who had once ruled much of India, Aurangzeb had won almost everything he fought for. The throne, the Deccan, an empire larger than any Mughal had ruled before him. And yet, within decades of his death, the empire would begin to fracture. Perhaps that is the paradox of Aurangzeb. His greatest achievement and his greatest burden were the same thing: the empire. He spent his life trying to become strong enough to carry it, and in the end, it outlived the man, but not the weight of his ambition. And that is the burden of greatness.